It's a great morning. The Padres won yesterday, and we're going to win today. Yay! We're excited. Okay, with that, I'm going to now call the October 9th San Diego County Board of Supervisors Land Use Session and Flood Control District meeting to order and resume deliberations from October 8th regular meeting. I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Ryan to call roll call.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. Supervisor Anderson. Here. Supervisor Montgomery Stepp. Supervisor Desmond.
Here.
Vice Chair Lawson-Remer and Chairwoman Vargas.
Here. All right, we're going to first consider the regular meeting item number 11, which was continued during yesterday's hearing. We see the analysis of how changes to Prop 47 through the potential passage of Proposition 36 could impact funding for services offered by the County of San Diego Board to consider taking a position on Proposition 36. I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly Jordina, our Deputy Chief Administrative, what did I call you yesterday? I gave you the wrong title. Deputy Chief Administrative Officer of the Health and Human Services Agency. Morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Chairwoman and members of the board. Thank you. On August 27th, the board directed that we work with relevant groups and departments to return on October 9th now to provide an analysis of how changes to Proposition 47 through the potential passage of Proposition 36 could impact funding for county services with a specific focus on behavioral health services, housing and development services, and homelessness-related programs, so the board can consider taking a position on Proposition 36. The analysis we will provide today will also include potential impacts as it relates to law enforcement and detention services, prosecution and defense of crimes, and supervision and support of clients in the community. This analysis is a collaborative effort across county departments and includes contributions from various departments and offices. Joining me today for this presentation is Andrew Strong, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer Public Safety, and Chief Deputy District Attorney Pat Espinosa. Prop 47, also known as the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, passed in 2014 and requires misdemeanor sentence instead of felony for certain drug and property offenses. The measure requires any state savings that result from the measure be spent to support mental health and substance use treatment, truancy prevention, and victim services. According to the California Legislative Analyst's Office, or LAO, Prop 47 reduced the number of crimes punishable as felonies, thereby reducing the number of people that could be sentenced to state prison. The LAO indicates savings estimated at approximately $100 million annually across the state, which were redirected for the intended programs and services previously mentioned. Prop 36, known as the Homelessness, Drug Addiction, and Theft Reduction Act, will be included on the November 5th, 2024 statewide ballot. Prop 36 makes several major changes related to punishments for theft and drug crimes. These changes will increase punishment for some of these crimes, create a new treatment-focused court process for some drug possession crimes, and require courts to warn people convicted of selling or providing illegal drugs to others that they can be charged with murder if they continue and someone dies. According to the LAO, Prop 36 would increase state and local criminal justice costs, likely in the tens of millions of dollars to the low hundreds of millions of dollars annually, primarily due to an increase of state prison population and county jail, community supervision, and court-mandated health and drug treatment workload. The LAO anticipates that Prop 36 would reduce funding by tens of millions of dollars for services and programs for which funding is generated through savings from Prop 47. Total statewide funding for these services is nearly $100 million annually. The county utilizes $6 million of one-time Prop 47 grant funding for the Community Care Coordination Reentry Support Program, or C3RES program, and for the Peer Reentry Leadership Academy. These distinct programs include components of behavioral health care, housing and development, and/or support to people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. The first program, C3RES, provides comprehensive care coordination, service navigation, and housing assistance to justice-involved individuals with a history of behavioral health needs and at risk of or experiencing homelessness as they leave custody from local jails to return to their communities. Since the start of the program in May 2023 up to July 31st, 2024, the program has served 141 unique individuals. The C3RES contract term is 5 years, with the last 2 option years currently unfunded. Total budgeted amount for the first 3 years of C3RES is $5,190,000 from Prop 47. If funding is not made available through Prop 47, or if an alternative funding source is not identified, this contract will expire in January 2026. The second program, the Sheriff's Peer Reentry Leadership Academy, provides justice-involved individuals with training on barriers to reentry, effective communication, and available community resources. Since the first Prop 47 funded cohort started in September 2023 and through March 2024, 30 participants graduated across 2 cohorts. The total budget for the Peer Reentry Leadership Academy is $510,000 of one-time funding, which is being utilized over a 3-year period until the grant term expires on June 2026. The remaining $300,000 of the grant award goes toward program evaluation to ensure that Prop 47 funded programs are successful in reducing recidivism and promoting positive outcomes for participants. If Prop 36 is passed, the program would likely see reduced or eliminated funding. Lastly, the Behavioral Health Services team applied for $8 million of Prop 47 grant program Cohort 4 funding for Forensic Assertive Community Treatment Services, or FACT services. And on October 3rd, the department received full funding confirmation from the Board of State and Community Corrections. These grant funds will be used to enhance housing payments, deposit assistance, flexible funding based on criminogenic needs, peer support specialists, and substance abuse counselors within evidence-based FACT programs. The grant funding would serve approximately 330 adult individuals 18 to 59 years of age who have serious mental illness and who are involved with the justice system with medium to high criminogenic risk. The Cohort 4 grant funds will provide enhanced services from October 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2028. Should Prop 36 pass, the $8 million in grant funding conditionally awarded could be potentially reduced or eliminated. I will now turn it over to Andrew Strong to introduce the impacts to our local justice system.
Thank you, Kim. As part of our analysis, staff also reviewed potential impacts from Prop 36 to the county's justice system, starting with law enforcement and detention services, then moving to prosecution and defense, as well as the supervision and support of clients and the community. Should Prop 36 pass, our public safety departments and offices estimate an initial minimum cost of approximately $58 million annually for increased staffing to support these services, with the largest impact to the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff currently receives approximately 50,000 individual bookings per year and has an average daily population of about 4,000 individuals in the county jails. Should Proposition 36 pass, the Sheriff's Office estimates there may be more than 5,000 to 8,000 new field arrests and bookings annually. More individuals in custody means that there will be higher levels of medical and behavioral health needs, an increase in hospital, court, and clinical transports, and additional staffing for courtroom support. In addition, there could be further impacts on existing jail infrastructure and facility deterioration, as well as a reduction of bed space and safe housing. This includes impacts to existing pilot programs such as Medication-Assisted Treatment Program, Americans with Disability Act Unit, and Contraband Narcotics Interdiction Team, which would need to become fully funded units. Based on this, it is estimated the Sheriff's Office will need to increase staffing by approximately 230 new positions at a cost of $52 million. I'll now turn the presentation over to the Chief Deputy District Attorney, Pat Espinoza.
The District Attorney's Office has reviewed current cases that would qualify under Prop 36 and determined that a majority are already being prosecuted by our office. Of the 2,100 cases identified with 2 or more qualifying drug or theft offenses, nearly 1,500, or nearly 70%, are already being prosecuted by the District Attorney. The remaining 600 cases are currently handled by the City Attorney's Office as misdemeanors. Based on this, we believe the greatest impact will likely be only as it relates to those city attorney cases, resulting in a minimum increase of approximately 600 additional criminal cases per year coming to our office. These cases are low-level, non-complex felonies that have a high rate of disposition. It is estimated DA staffing costs will increase in the range of $1 to $1.5 million annually. We anticipate that Prop 36 will incentivize many offenders to elect to participate in drug treatment rather than choose incarceration. This may reduce recidivism and further reduce the number of narcotics cases in the future. We also anticipate Prop 36 will consolidate and reduce the number of theft cases committed by serial theft offenders. I'll now turn the presentation back over to Andrew Strong.
And thank you, Pat. Since passage of Prop 47, the public defender's Class 3 felony caseload has dropped by 57%, from over 14,000 cases in 2013 to just over 6,000 cases in 2023. Class 3 felonies are low-level felonies that Proposition 47 focused on, reducing to misdemeanors for some theft and drug charges. Under Proposition 36, some of these charges will be redesignated as Class 3 felonies. Should Prop 36 pass, the public defender anticipates a potential caseload increase ranging from 1,000 to 8,000, requiring felony representation. The significant range of cases is due to current unknown factors that could impact the number of cases that come to the office. But we do anticipate that for every 1,000 new cases, 16.5 attorneys and 9 support staff would be needed added at a cost of $4.5 million annually. The probation department currently supports over 8,400 clients under community supervision. Should Prop 36 pass, it is anticipated 500 or more additional clients will come under their supervision. The number of cases requiring community supervision could be much higher due to unknown factors that could impact the number of cases granted treatment-mandated probation under Prop 36. Depending upon the number and risk level of clients, probation estimates needing 2 to 7 new positions at a cost of $230,000 to $1.3 million. This range is also based on the classification of sworn staff level identified to support the additional caseload. In addition, the new treatment-mandated felony designation would increase supervision costs related to drug treatment, drug testing, and interim housing for their clients at a range of $5,800 to $10,500 per client. Today, we request the board receive the analysis of how changes to Prop 47 through the potential passage of Prop 36 could impact funding for services offered by the County of San Diego, and for the board to consider whether to take a position on Prop 36. Thank you. This concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open a public comment first and then bring it back. Okay.
Thank you. 7 individuals in I'd like to note for the record comments on this item. 1 was in favor, 8 were in opposition. Individuals that have requested to speak on this item by phone, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions of speakers. Those that are in favor of this item first. As your name is called, please come forward and stand on the calling individuals in groups of 3. I'd like to invite Rhodes, Gina Burns, and Montagim. Chamber, Ruben Cabrera. Any movement in the chamber? Mark. The board's rules, since we have a minute to address audio record.
Good morning, Chairwoman Vargas, Vice speaking before you today on behalf of Alliance San Diego opposes Prop 36 because it would roll back years of hard-fought with addiction receive help and not punishment. Fairness over fear and rehabilitation over leave San Diego County taxpayers footing a bill of over also adding endless San Diegans to our prisons pipeline. And everywhere in between would be disproportionately affected. Over policing and create alternatives to incarceration. Justice requires equity. Prop 36 undermines these efforts and puts our communities at even greater risk. Justice stands for progress, not regress. Let us be for safety and not suffering, for solutions and not stigmas. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
Consuelo. Yeah, I like the current unknown factors. There's always a lot of unknown factors, but people never get to the source and the root of the factors of why there's so many bookings and arrests. And it's just, you know, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. It's the government. It's the system. It's purposely broken. It's perfectly flawed, right? It doesn't work. Government does not work. It never has. And that's all it creates is just a different form of enslavement. And yeah, the sooner people wake up to where we're at and what we're in, the better it will be for all of humanity.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Christy Lovehill. I'm the Advocacy and Legal Director with the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties. We urge this board to vote no on any resolution to support Prop 36. Prop 36 is a dangerous measure built on false narratives. The proponents of this measure claim that it will address rising crime and retail theft. But from 2019 to 2022, property crime rates in the city of San Diego and shoplifting rates in the county all decreased. Prop 47, passed in 2014, reallocated more than $800 million in corrections funding to mental health, substance use treatment, and K-12 public school programs, to name just a few. Prop 36, if passed, would end these investments and undo Prop 47's progress. The measure, as you heard from the county's own fiscal analysis, will increase county criminal legal costs. If passed, Prop 36 will result in more incarceration and less safety across the state. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Hi, my name is Zhang Wei. I'm a community advocate here in San Diego. I briefly spoke at this board meeting about what the dangers of Prop 36 to my community and how it affected my family. My brother went to prison at an early age. One other thing that I didn't share also is like my family knew very well that when my brother, if he ever had a chance to get out, he doesn't. He didn't. He passed away in prison in 2018. But if he ever had a chance to get out of the prison, we knew that the society would continuously to discriminate him. He would have a problem finding jobs, finding places to live, and all of that. My mom and I would then talk about taking a mortgage out of the house to build a business for him, that he would not suffer through that, all of that discrimination, despite that he spent time paying for his dues. So we all know that the program that the board supervisor, the county have been creating the last few years for the Prop 47 help a lot of people.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Hi, my name is Michelle Woodson, and I'm the legal director of Pillars of the Community. District attorneys, law enforcement, and supporters of Proposition 36 are using deceptive tactics to trick California voters into passing this dangerous initiative that will throw people away in prison for low-level nonviolent offenses. Prop 36 threatens to cut funding to critical resources and roll us back to the disastrous tough-on-crime approach, while data, research, and experts continue to prove that this approach was a dismal failure and disproportionately impacts Black and brown communities. We're not afraid of people who are under-resourced, but we are afraid of people that believe that people that are under-resourced deserve to be thrown in prison. We have both witnessed and experienced the devastating effects of a strictly punitive carceral system, and we are committed to supporting and implementing real solutions that invest into our people to create true public safety in our communities. Prison doesn't deter crime, it doesn't reduce recidivism, and it is not rehabilitative. It's a fiscally irresponsible use of taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
It's truth that presentation was some great political theater. If Prop 36 impacts funding for county services, that sounds like justice. Anyone who says yes to 950 in theft is an aider and abetter of that theft. Every supervisor knows this doesn't look good for campaign season, hence political stalling. But all over the county, I keep hearing the average person saying they're tired of theft, drug use, and all other associated crimes. And everybody knows that the crime numbers are a lie. They're not down as reported. People gave up calling cops and reporting. And the state also coincidentally introduced a cyber system, which recategorized crime to skew the numbers. Prop 47 has created empty shelves, high crime, homelessness, increased alcohol and drug addictions, increased gun violence, and increased deaths. Where's the county assessment on that? Where's the evidence that any of the junk programs funded by Prop 47 have actually worked? There's zero excuse for anyone to support crime and violence in low-income neighborhoods of color. And that's all Prop 47 has done. It creates fear, unfairness, and it's racist, just like its supporters. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Hello, my name is Michael White. I'm with Pillars of the Community, and I urge you to vote no on Prop 36. Prop 36 is all propaganda and lies used by big corporations and police to incarcerate Black and brown people and take us back to the Reagan era and the Bill Clinton era. If California and locking up people is the safest answer, then California would be the safest place in the world. Prison is not the answer. Rehabilitative programs and help is. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Paula Bold, let us reject the report and await the verdict. Prop 47 overruling Prop 36. I mean, Prop 36 overruling Prop 47 is bound to pass. Major cities like Oakland, SF, and many more are totally messed up by Prop 47. Also, I do not really care about the cost so much as public safety. Providing a drug treatment alternative to just your prison is great and will help the community at large. And that is what you should be concerned with. Sometimes you have to worry more about public safety before pinching pennies. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Layla Aziz, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
My name is Layla Aziz. I'm with Pillars of the Community, and I am strongly against Prop 36. Right now, we have one of the highest in-custody deaths, and Prop 36 is going to pack the jails who are already suffering from the lack of being able to deal with issues such as mental health and drug treatment. Not only that, Prop 36 is taking the money, hundreds of millions of dollars, from mental health and drug treatment, which is then going to be averted to the district attorney's office and the jails, and then later the prisons to lock people up. It looks like, from what we're seeing, because of these self-checkout lanes and the lines, that Walmart Target, and Home Depot. They are proponents of Prop 36 because they are going to lay off thousands of workers who are now going to be poor without jobs, and theft will go up. This is a backwards way of looking at dealing with issues. It's harming more people.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Yeah, it's interesting because the system is purposely flawed. It's intentionally corrupted. And if you didn't have, people being arrested just for going and speaking at meetings, maybe the system would be ran differently. But this is very convoluted, and that's why things can come in contradiction of each other. But it's interesting to see you guys talking about requiring the warning of possible murder charges for selling or providing drugs if somebody dies. Those are things that you guys are engaged in. When you're pushing a genocide shot, a bioweapon for people to get, and then all of these other drugs that you want them to be on, people have died from that, and you're not being held accountable. So I just find it interesting that you want to do that with other people, but when it comes to what you guys are doing, you can peddle drugs all you want to the people to keep them sedated, and so that they, are in a constant state of, just disillusion and unable to, be present in society instead of really getting down to the problem. Because when you do have money to spend on mental health and substance abuse treatment.
Thank you. Your time is up. And to note for the record, that speaker was Audra. Go to our next speaker.
Kevin Stevenson, I am a hell no on 36. 36 is a disaster. 36 essentially wants to dictate that people get treatment for mental health, which in theory I would support, but it simultaneously takes away funding for mental health treatment. So this basically sets up people to fail. But on top of that, Jim, you've been a pretty vocal proponent of this ballot proposition. Well, I find it very interesting that I keep getting ads of your face on my YouTube, getting YouTube ads from you saying that we should not pay taxes for better infrastructure and better transit funding in regards to Measure G, but you want us to pay more taxes so that some black teenagers get locked up for stealing a Snickers from a CVS one time for like 3 years. That's a waste of our taxpayers' money, and that's cool. We don't need to go back in time. Prop 36 is a disaster.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Ann Riddle calling in. I support Proposition 36, and I've had a first-hand look at the adjudication process for someone that was dear to me. And my experience was that the process was not racist. It is, however, discriminatory against those who are poor. So if we're going to look at issues, we should look at those processes that create poor people and see where we can intervene. But for me, the heart of this program is that it focuses on a new treatment-focused court process for drug possession crimes. And the one thing we know clearly about those who use drugs is that they don't leap into treatment. They don't choose treatment as much as they'd like to. They don't have the capacity to, and the court would help them get that opportunity, and that's worth voting for Prop 36, because once one gives themselves over to drug use, it changes how we live in society.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it, and appreciate all the callers and the comments and hearing this item today. So absolutely, yes, there are costs with passing Prop 36. I mean, there's a cost to society either way. And if there's also costs if we do nothing. Right now, cost is being burdened by businesses, big and small, and the everyday person and just society as a whole. The damage that Prop 47 has done to California is really impossible to monetize. But people are fed up with rampant crime and homelessness in the state, and they want something done. And getting people into treatment is really what we should be focused on. And so we can't allow shoplifting just to continue because it's expensive to enforce. Many of the reasons that we haven't solved homelessness is because we haven't incentivized, and we spent over billions of dollars on it, we haven't incentivized people to get into treatment. Into treatment, first of all, into court, into treatment, and as a last resort, into jail. That is not the purpose of Prop 36. We want to be able to have a reason for them to seek treatment. We've seen the cost savings in the long run when repeat offenders have consequences and or they receive the treatment they need. Prop 36 is not just a punitive prop that wants to throw everybody in jail. Matter of fact, what's built into Prop 36, even if you still steal up to $950 per occurrence, you can do it 3 times before any sort of consequences, and the 4th time can be released by a judge. So increased, and the reason, or to bring up the increased medical and behavioral support services will bear a burden on society. That's what we need, is more increased medical and behavioral services. And we need it to be focused on the people who need it the most. And, I want to thank our district attorney, Summer Steffen, for her hard work on this proposition. She deals with both criminals and victims of crime on a daily basis. I support her vision for a safer California. This may not be the perfect answer, but it's a step in the right direction, I think, to get people into the treatment they need and have an incentive to get them into treatment instead of just staying on our streets. So thank you very much. I'll move to approve the agenda item to support Prop 36.
Supervisor Montgomery, staff.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Vargas. Let me start by thanking county staff for undertaking this work and providing really, really valuable information on the potential impacts of Prop 36 implementation on county-provided services and our budget as well. So thank you for that. I want to go back a bit and ask all of us to remember our history in the state of California. We had an item approving and supporting as a county Proposition 6 yesterday, which talked about involuntary servitude and loophole in our California Constitution. I think this is, in big picture, all a part of the holistic approach that we've taken, kind of going back and forth in the state of California, determining how we will handle crime, but also rehabilitation. And I, from the brief, just look overall at history in California, feel that we have gone down this flawed path many, many times before. And the results we got were thousands of broken families, which one could argue could produce more people that are in the system, lonely children, and a prison population so saturated that the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that our policies amounted to cruel and unusual punishment. Our jails, our prisons were overcrowded. And I guarantee you, if this passes and we implement it, we will be back here a decade or 2 later reversing what we did before. Because we have a knee-jerk reaction to trying to solve problems that over time we have created. So the passage of Prop 36 would involve a return to these failed policies and will continue to impose disproportionate harm on communities of color and low-income communities. And the idea that Prop 47 has had anything to do with increasing crime rates is a complete fabrication with no basis in reality. It seems that we look at data to make every other policy decision other than when it comes to our criminal justice system. Every other one. When it comes to this subject, data doesn't matter. How we feel, how we perceive, that's what matters. And it's not fair. But let me go to the data. This is what it says. The Public Policy Institute of California reports that since 2019, shoplifting rates are down in San Diego County by 21%, and in recent years, burglaries are down by 18% in the city of San Diego. The California Department of Justice reports that at the state level, the prevalence of property crimes is 1/3 of the peak rate that it was in 1980, that the prevalence of violent crime rates is less than half of the peak rate in 1992. And from our own county sheriff, who presented crime statistics for the sheriff's service areas at the clerk meeting last week, Sheriff Martinez did report that crime rates are at a 37-year low. And overall crime rates are down 13% from 2022 to 2023, including a 10% reduction in violent crime and a 19% reduction in property crime. We also must consider the fiscal impacts that passage of Prop 36 will have on already strained local and state government budgets. The average cost to incarcerate a single individual for a year is over $132,000 in our state. And we have multiple reputable agencies reporting that the projected increased costs to the prison and court systems will range from hundreds of millions to possibly billions of dollars. In this report we are receiving today, county staff estimate costs in excess of $58 million annually related to Prop 36 passage, and sheriff estimates over $52 million in costs for additional workforce alone. I said it before, I will continue to emphasize, every dollar that we spend on incarceration is money that is not being invested in education, community development, mental health systems, substance use treatment, trauma recovery, reentry supports, and crime prevention programming. These are the policies and programs that promote public safety. We have an opportunity moving forward to build off of the successes of Prop 47 and other justice reform policy in reducing the number of incarcerated individuals in the state of California. I have also said this before, that Prop 47 should not be looked at in a silo, but that we need to create other systems like affordable housing, like better education, mental health systems that I've already listed out before, to help support people so that they are not going back into the system. But rather than reverting to hyper-criminalization and simplistic views of public safety that have proven unsuccessful in the past, state leaders should focus on implementing comprehensive approaches that address the root causes of substance use and antisocial behaviors. I believe that such actions can strengthen the social fabric of families and communities, tackling the structural inequalities that have persisted for generations. Issues such as poverty, housing instability, and limited access to health care, quality education, and employment opportunities need our dedicated focus more now than ever. Again, thank you for going back and gathering all of this information. I appreciate where everyone will land on this, but I just believe that it's the wrong way to move forward. So I will not be supporting the motion on the floor today. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
First of all, I really appreciate the staff's very thorough analysis. Ebony, would it be all right if I call up some of our team for some questions? Okay, thank you. I was hoping to just begin with Andrew. My colleague mentioned some crime statistics, and I wanted to kind of better unpack. I know a lot of the claims and the arguments in support of Proposition 36 from one colleague, Supervisor Desmond, is predicated that there's a dramatic spike in crime. My other colleague has argued that we've actually seen a reduction in crime. I was hoping you could kind of share our latest crime statistics and help me disentangle this.
Yeah, and just to reaffirm what some of the supervisors already spoke to, the recent Sandag report spoke to some of the stats. Locally, the crimes against property rate decreased by 8% in 2023 compared to 2022. Robberies decreased by 8%. Burglaries decreased by 15%. Larceny decreased by 4%.
Could you say that all more slowly?
Oh, sorry. Apologies.
And I also can't even tell if you're saying increased or decreased.
Decreased. Okay.
Decreased.
Okay.
Okay.
They were all decreased.
So these are all
so far.
statistics of decreases in crime.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. So these are all stats against crimes against property. The crimes against property rate decreased by 8% in 2023 compared to 2022. Robberies decreased 8%. Burglaries decreased 15%. Larceny theft decreased 4%. and motor vehicle theft decreased by 1%. Crimes against society, these are different crimes. These are narcotics violations, drug equipment violations, 4 types of gambling offenses, accounted for 18% of all crimes committed in 2023 and decreased by 3% in 2023 compared to 2022. And also just note that if passed, Proposition 36, the majority of the offenses, as the Sheriff's Department noted, would primarily be drug possession offenses and less likely to be theft offenses.
Okay, so just so I'm clear that all these, the property crimes seem to all have been decreasing.
That's correct. That's correct.
That's super, super helpful. And then I had some questions also for our behavioral health team, if potentially if Dr. Bergman could come up.
Good morning.
This is very helpful and very interesting. I was hoping you could unpack, obviously a big piece of this analysis has identified that there's $14 million in state funding for mental health addiction treatment programs that would potentially be lost. That was the Prop 47 money that could potentially be lost if Prop 36 passed. I was hoping to better understand, are these programs working? Like, do we have any data on whether they're effective? Are these good programs, or should we just scrap them?
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Vice Chair. The programs that are outlined in our analysis, kind of per the structure in the LAO's office gave us, are effective programs. So C3, Peer Leadership Academy were noted. And then the Forensic ACT program was also outlined by Dr. Giardina in her remarks. That is a program that represents a significant additional amount of funding through Prop 47. And it would be a new program for the county. It is based upon an evidence-based practice that marries a focus on folks with justice involvement historically, and an emphasis on criminogenic needs and ACT services, which are multidisciplinary services for people with behavioral health conditions that include peer support, case management, psychiatric care, that sort of thing.
And so if this did pass and we didn't have that $14 million, it looked like these programs are going to help individuals to get housing or get services, when they're released, so that they can kind of begin to get back on their feet. What would we replace that money with something? Like, what would we do with those programs? Would they just get canceled?
So, I think, again, per Dr. Giardina's remarks, we see the loss of Prop 47 funding as putting these programs at risk. That does not mean that we have concluded that they would disappear necessarily or categorically at this point, but we see them at risk. I would say that with respect to the FACT program in particular, we are, of course, working hard per this board's direction to seek any opportunity for sustainable funding that does not come through grant programs, but that comes through the public insurance system. So we would, continue those efforts. We would try really hard to optimize coded reimbursements that we see on the horizon through CalAIM.
That's very helpful. And to our CEO, Ebony Shelton, I'm not sure if you might be the best person or if Joan's here, but I wanted to better understand a piece of that was not well answered for me in this report is that $58 million in additional costs that would increases in costs for our criminal justice system. Where would that money come from?
We would need to, thank you, through the chair, we would need to look across the organization. We would start first by, of course, looking acutely within public safety for strategies and solutions to make reductions to our cost structure to increase efficiencies, but it certainly would have impacts on discretionary programs first, and then would require us to look harder at service delivery impacts across the organization. As you know, our outlook is negative based on the current financial conditions of the organization, and we are anticipating that we'll have to make some adjustments to our cost structure So there will be trade-offs for sure in terms of programs.
Could you give me some examples of like a type of what is a discretionary program? I know not that we would cut it or whatever, but I would be helpful to understand what kind of things we might need to get rid of in order to fund $58 million more.
Well, we would start for sure by first looking at some of the discretionary programs that have been implemented under the board's leadership over the last few years. I would prefer not to provide examples because I don't want to create angst within the organization or amongst my staff and my team, but certainly there would be discretionary programs where we would look to first unwind those and then have conversations about service delivery impacts.
So basically, basically kind of everything that we do that's not kind of core function that's required by the state could be considered.
That is right, as well as level of service even.
And could you explain what that means when you say level of service?
So we do a great job, for example, in terms of response times and providing support and getting folks access to services. And maybe there would be delays. We would still meet those mandated activities as it relates to supporting individuals with accessing benefit programs, for example, but there may be delays in accessing those services from a responsiveness perspective. Caseloads could increase for our team members in those service areas, whether that's in public safety or in health and human services. So certainly there will be operational impacts even in mandated service areas.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you to the team for all of your work in helping me understand how this could impact how our county functions.
So thank you. Thank you again to the team for returning to the board with an analysis and explaining some of the fiscal impacts. And thank you to my colleagues for their comments as well. I just want to say that, obviously the safety and well-being of our communities is absolutely a top priority for me. And I'm going to continue to do everything that I can to advocate for innovative and effective solutions to address the root cause of crime and substance abuse, and that includes sentencing reform to address the inequities of racial and ethnic disparities of our criminal justice system. And while I'm deeply concerned about the rise, because we can continue to hear this, right, of fentanyl and the impact on our communities, I just don't believe that Prop 36 is the right solution to address this. It really does disproportionately. I'm going to ask who's ever on the phone to go outside. Yeah?
It's already out in the hall.
Oh, okay. So it's really loud, but thank you. I'll let them know. Thank you. Or I have good hearing, either one. So Prop 36 disproportionately affects the most vulnerable populations and communities of color who I represent. And instead of expanding access to care and focusing on harm reduction services that this initiative should continue to push communities into, it's going to actually continue to push communities into the cycle of incarceration and marginalization. So I want to emphasize a couple of things that my team and I did in the analysis of the information that you provided. And I just want to reiterate this because it says that if Prop 36 passes, the County of San Diego's Community Care Coordination Reentry Support, or C3RES contract will expire. That means we will no longer be able to assist justice-involved individuals with a history of behavioral health needs and are at risk for experiencing homelessness when they exit custody. And this is just one of the many programs dedicated to addressing behavioral health needs that would lose funding if this passes. There are currently about 90,000 people in prison, but with Prop 36, that number would also increase by a few thousand people, and increasing state court workloads and draining resources from an already burned out system. My understanding is that District Attorney's Office would need nearly $500,000 of additional funding to increase staff required to handle additional cases. The Public Defender's Office will need at least 16.5 attorneys and 9 additional support staff to meet the demand of Prop 36. And the Probation Department will need to manage 500 or more clients, severely increasing their workloads, which was one of the biggest topics that they address with us day in and day out. So to me, Prop 36 is not the answer. I want to restate, and I mentioned this before, right? The Governor Newsom recently signed landmark legislation that cracks down on retail crime and property theft, demonstrating a targeted approach to addressing these types of crime, because that's what people have been talking about. That's the boogeyman. That's what everybody keeps saying. But the truth is that crime has been reduced, and there's policies that have now been implemented to address this particular issue. So These are the types of effective policies that we need to be implemented instead of blank approaches like Prop 36 that fail to address what I believe is the root of the problem. We can be tough on crime without sacrificing the well-being of our communities, and this initiative disproportionately affects the vulnerable populations and communities of color that for too long have been impacted by policies that instead of focusing on restorative justice, they focus on really targeting communities. When someone is struggling with addiction and mental health, incarceration alone does not address the problem. We know that. And Prop 36 doesn't expand or provide services to those who are struggling with behavioral health and substance abuse disorders. We must find ways to protect our communities, prioritize restorative justice, increase access to care, and support more harm reduction program. You know, the initial minimum cost that has been talked about for public safety department and offices is a minimum of $58 million. I don't think this is based on your analysis, supporting this is not fiscally prudent, and it's also not morally, the right thing to do. And so with that, I will not be supporting this motion. So we have a motion and a second, unless there's any other discussion. No? Okay, please vote.
And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion fails with Supervisor Anderson, Supervisor Desmond voting aye, and all their supervisors being present voting no.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll now turn over to County Council for a report of actions taken in yesterday's closed session.
There are no actions to report.
Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to our clerk, Ryan, for any non-agenda public communication.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. Non-agenda public communication is an opportunity for the public to address the board on subject matters within the board's jurisdiction, but not an item on today's agenda. The only action that the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. According to the board's rules of procedure, public speakers that are non-English speaking and need interpretation assistance will get twice the allotted time for their comments. The rules also state that audience members shall not whistle, clap, stomp feet, or anything that disrupts the proceedings. We have 29 total requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda, 5 individuals in person, and 24 requesting to speak by phone. For those that have requested to speak by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that provided to you. We'll go ahead and begin with the in-person speakers. In accordance with the board's rules and procedures, we'll hear from the first 5 speakers in person. All remaining speakers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. You'll then have 2 minutes to address the board. Please begin by stating your name for the record. I'd like to invite forward the first 3 individuals, Michael Brando, Robert Gurman, and Parita Javier.
Michael.
I just think this has gotten politicized in a way that's like really unhealthy and like unhelpful. I just think this has gotten politicized in a way that's like really unhealthy and like unhelpful. How do we do what's right for everyone and not just focus on what's good for ourselves? We make sacrifices in times of challenges for the community and the collective.
We sit up here and we do theater like all day long. We never get to say the stuff that's really going on. We just sit here and have theater all day.
I just think this has gotten politicized in a way that's like really unhealthy and like unhelpful.
I love that audio mashup because it reveals so much truth. A lot of it has to do with Tara. Political theater. That's all that goes on here, just like I said yesterday. And what's interesting is that Tara can't seem to tell the truth about anything, hardly anything. Yesterday, she disrespected the attendees by saying we're going to go into a 5-minute recess. That recess was about 30 minutes long. All right. So one of those clips was back from 2021 when this board was promoting the pandemic of the unvaccinated, saying that people who don't get this are going to die, are going to get really, really sick, when really the opposite has happened. How about that? Some of you, which is very interesting, have demonstrated over 3 years becoming very, very ill with things that are likely attributed to this. All right. right. Other people come here and beg for help regarding the horses on Artesian Road, and then we have people here that tell lies about that and say that nothing was ever going on, no abuse, no neglect ever happened. Javier, they think they're going to get help from this board. This board is not here for them. Power lies within.
I'm waiting for you now. You start this. Okay. Mr. Gurman, if you don't like what's happening at Gillespie Field, you should move. I ask, what is happening at Gillespie Field? The response from Director Peter Drinkwater and Gillespie Field Development Council, you're not a pilot, you don't need to know. Even Supervisor Bill Horn instructed me to move at one of your meetings. Director Drinkwater offered me 2 tickets to the air show in front of a witness. It's just leave this thing alone. It's bigger than you are. Really. Now a bribe. I was insulted. Now I knew Gillespie was my new hobby. I started seeing numerous inconsistencies in how San Diego airports were run with no oversight or no accountability. Spearfield at Gillespie is another piece of the puzzle. Is Spearfield an air park, AKA country club, on county-owned, funded, and maintained money? FAA, where $1 million hangar homes repeatedly flood, golf carts drive, and kids play on lush green lawns, 1 to 4 bedroom apartments, condos, homes hosting campaign parties for elected officials who pledge to save the airport using "Long Live Gillespie" as their slogan. This campaign of fear tactic generate donations from pilots, flight schools, and fixed base operators. The reason El Cajon is one of the poorest cities in our county, it's Gillespie Airport, stupid. Please note, golf carts are more important than the citizens of Alpine after they complained about the flight schools flying over their homes at 300 feet. Thank you. Go Padres.
The remaining. These are Javier and Zora Fahim.
Good morning. I am Purita Javier, victim toxicity since 1997, and my husband Cesar B. Javier, beginning in 2012 from Next Door Ceramics Manufacturing and Keln Industrial Home Business since 1984, owned and operated by Donald J. Fraser and wife Evelyn Fraser, located at 5238 Streamview Drive, San Diego, California, 92105, and situated in the residential zone, designated community. Science through research and studies explains that hazard in ceramics are air contaminants or airborne particulates from firing kilns and even toxic dust when inhaled and or ingested will cause sneezing, coughing, watery eyes, dizziness, irregular headache, irregular heart palpitation, which we both experienced in the past. Even now, when they fire the oven makeshift, fear lurks because it leads to asthma, other respiratory disease, lung cancer. In fact, Center for Disease Control, CDC, in its Health Bulletin of 2020 pandemic, declared that repetitive heating of clay mixed with chemicals.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Cesar, good morning. Mom Steve, our chair, governing body, member of Air Pollution Control District with Madame Rimmer. Ceramics business began in 1984, and our community has no idea of what that smoke was spreading in a downwind topography towards the populated residents. This is not only a community issue. This is environment. This is social justice. This is land use issue. And finally, we learned that this is all about land use. It has not to be there because it is not in accord with health, safety, and public welfare. That is the general provision of land use, if I may clarify this with the land use people supposed to be here, the brain of all this. It's a violation. And the local laws are opposite to this. They exempt this poison emitting industrial makeshift, Rule 11. Please read it. It was revised 2020 and made effective 2022. Controversial because it was at the height of our reporting. We saw our Councilor Rivera, at the same time the representative to the Air Pollution Control Governing Board and our city mayor. They could have solved this in those years if they are really meant to put justice for all. Help us.
Thank you. Next speaker. Yep.
Hi, good morning. My name is Zora Fahim, President and founder of Los Angeles Alliance for Animals, District 5 voting constituent. Thank you, Mr. Desmond, for all that you do for us. And the newest member of the Animal Protection Alliance, which focuses on animal advocacy and composed of 20 coalition partners who focus on local, state, and federal issues that relate to animals, and we represent thousands of voting constituents. This is a reflection of Supervisor Tara Larson Reamer's failure in leadership and complicity in animal cruelty. She has allowed for this emaciated horse to be neglected and die a slow, painful death. She has been advised for almost a year now that, according to my equine experts who specialize in equine cruelty investigations, that this is allegations of a criminal act. If you look at the Department of Animal Services notes, it specifically said that this horse was in this condition for quite some time. This is a violation of Penal Code 597, not providing proper treatment or medical care. And Deborah Barkley mentioned that she did not euthanize this horse because of the mud. Well, this horse laid in the mud regardless, so it didn't really matter. On top of that, I am getting reports from witnesses that there is neglect at this ranch, so that is current information. And I'm deeply concerned because the greatness of a nation depends on the way our animals are treated, and right now this county is not great. And I know deep in my heart that the supervisors do not want cruelty in our county, and I understand that, but asking for the law to be enforced in our county is not asking for much. We just want you to know, and we'll never stop coming, that these horses, their lives matter. I understand that they're race horses, but they deserve the compassion and love that all of our animals have. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. Again, in accordance with the board's rules, we will be hearing from the first 5 callers. The remaining callers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm a voting. Can you hear me?
If you could speak a little bit more directly into your phone, but we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. I'm at work, so I'm speaking at work. Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm a voting constituent of District 4, Supervisor Monica Stepp. Monica, I just want to let you know how disappointed I am in your leadership regarding horse abuse on Deborah Barkley's ranch in Rancho Santa Fe. I'm concerned how you still allow animal abuse to continue after 2 horses have died within a year from neglect. I suspect because her partner, Craig Netwick, has a $1 billion contract with the city for pure water. Yes, Craig Network has a $1 billion contract with the city, which leads me to believe that there might be corruption going on at the City of San Diego County Board of Supervisors. They are complacent in the animal abuse, and because I suspect there's corruption going on, that's why nothing's been done. So why is Deborah Larson-Reamer complacent with animal abuse? This is her district. Deborah Barkley's ranch, and she's not investigating the animal abuse that's going on Deborah's ranch in Rancho Santa Fe. Monica, I will not vote for you the next election because of, just like for animal abuse. County Animal Control is responsible. They're responsible for animal neglect. And so why is the Director of Animal Control, Stephen Lujan, not opening a case against Deborah Barkley's ranch? This is his responsibility. His responsibility. That's what we pay the city to have services done. Because he failed to open a case, we cannot have her prosecuted. We're paying tax money.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning. My name is Michael Fujimori. I'm calling to ask the question, why hasn't the Department of Animal Services done their job and removed the horses and dogs from the abusive conditions at the home on Artesian Road? Now, for months, activists have been showing up in person and calling in to plead with Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer and the DAS to please remove the suffering animals there and take them to an animal sanctuary where they will not have to endure the horrible neglect and abuse and will instead be taken care of in a warm and safe environment, just like any of us would want. Supervisor Reamer, I'm beginning to believe that there is some type of ulterior motive for the unexplained lack of action being taken. Animals do not have a voice, but I do, and I'm going to keep using it until something is done. Free the Artesian Road animals from their suffering before any more animals die. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Annie Abram, or Artesian Horses.
Thank you. Please
Can you
proceed.
hear me?
Yes, we can. Please proceed with your comments.
Yes, good morning. Very interesting. All the suffering of one is the suffering of many. When there is, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, when there is injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. And he didn't say only a few people, only a few this. Any suffering of any life, whether it's a dog, a horse, a human, regardless of the species, regardless of race, color, all the crazy things that we humans create to divide and control, it's really a mess here. Artesian horses' lives matter in every direction, in every way. In addition to the dogs that are entrapped on the property of Deborah and Craig, these people are criminals, yet they are not charged. And these innocent victims, these horses and dogs, are still remaining, despite the fact that we plead again and again and again. And the death and the suffering of these horses. 2 horses died, and all of them are dying every single day in suffering. You know, there is a way to murder somebody every single day. I hear the cries of everyone coming here. I hear them. We die every single day before we literally die physically. We cannot continue doing this. Supervisor Reamer, you have an obligation. You have a job. We come to you because you are the person, you are the supervisor who has the power. We do not have that power to change things. We're pleading with you. I don't know how else can we try to be heard so these animals are removed right away, so our cries are heard.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Sandra Bell. I'm calling to ask that the animals on Artesian Road property be confiscated. The residents who keep animals there have proven to be criminally neglectful of their animals, as well as threatening and violent towards citizens asking for release of sick and dying horses who live in their own filth. We citizens who are compassionate want this issue to be resolved and the animals removed from the property. We look toward the government, our government, agencies to take seriously the tasks for which they are created and entrusted. Animal Services is an entity put in place by the will of the people to protect defenseless animals who are in miserable conditions and in harm's way. We have been asking for relief for the animals at Artesian Road for far too long. Please see to it that no more skeletal horses die a slow, painful death on their own waste. Take all animals off the property and prosecute the owners for continued animal abuse. Please, in the name of all that's beautiful and good on this earth, let's protect the innocent. Thank you.
Thank you. Go to our next caller.
Hi, Commissioners. This is Christina Koo. I'm an attorney, and I've seen many cases of animal cruelty. And also, I've heard about the Artisan horses in San Diego, of all the reports of severe neglect and death. So, these cases of abuse, neglect, and violence are illegal because the law recognizes that there needs to be prevention, deterrence, and punishment for cruelty against the most vulnerable, the defenseless. So from a legal perspective, we realize that animals are devoid of many resources that human victims have. They can't speak, they can't voice, they can't express their grievance, they cannot identify the perpetrators of cruelty, and they can't advocate for themselves. And I think that is the reason why laws were created to help them. And I just think we need to all be reminded of that. Why are we talking about these issues? And because of that, these animal-related cruelty and violent issues deserve a heightened level of support and taking legal action. And I understand that certain supervisors have the power to conduct further investigation and possibly prosecution. And based on the comments, it sounds like they really would like to see some discussion and thoughts from Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer. And I think that would be a huge progress from a legal perspective, from a county administration perspective, to have that kind of conversation and see if actions can be taken. Because we all realize, when these folks come up and speak and take time to share this issue with the whole county, based on what I'm hearing.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning. And again, all remaining speakers will be heard at the conclusion of today's session.
The next item on our agenda is the approval of the statement of proceeding minutes for the Board of Supervisors land use session of September 25th, 2024, and Flood Control District meeting of September 25th, 2024. If there is a motion to approve. So moved. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Okay. We'll now proceed with the formation of our consent calendar. Item 1 to 3, Flood Control District 1. All agenda items on the consent calendar are routine and will be acted upon with one motion. Public speakers will be able to comment on the consent calendar after the supervisors pull the items they would like for discussion. Supervisor Anderson, are there any items you wish to pull for discussion?
No.
Supervisor Montgomery Stepp?
No need to pull any items out. I'll move the consent agenda.
Thank you. Supervisor Desmond?
No items to pull. Thanks.
Vice Chair Lawson-Remer?
No items to pull.
All right, I don't have any items to pull either, so I'm going to go ahead and, I'm happy to second the motion and go ahead and turn it over to public comment.
Thank you, Chairman Vargas. We have 7 total requests to speak on the items on the consent calendar. All of those are coming via phone. So for any individuals that have requested to speak on items on the consent calendar by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you, and we'll go ahead and give you a moment to do so. All right, seeing our first caller coming in the queue, we will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. Again, when it's your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
Paula Bold, the flood damage thing, you're the representative for the entire county. You should draft an ordinance for the entire county, not just in unincorporated part. There are flood zones all over. Apparently you exempt developers from the requirements. And it goes against health and safety by potentially allowing vermin easier access and allowing the buildup of stormwater, which might eventually present a health or mosquito hazard. You mainly do this by creating houses with little perforations or entries for the water to supposedly go through. But apparently the designers of this ordinance would rather not look at the big picture. Tax agreement. Maiden Sunny Community Financing District. They seem at first glance like a good idea, but for new homes and provided to developers.
Are you still there, Paul?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Okay. You have 23 seconds left.
Well, apparently the designers of this ordinance would also rather not look at the big picture, and, the owners of the homes should really get a good deal. And
thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Hey, it's Truth Item 1. I translate this item to FEMA, basically looking for some return on their measly investments. AKA the January flood survivors got a couple of bucks, and so now FEMA is forcing changes to the county's policies by dangling a carrot of reduced flood insurance premiums. FEMA is also the agency that gave out $20 million of American tax money toward an illegal migrant shelter here that NBC7 was recently in denial of, even though FEMA had $640 million total in funding money printed to bribe cities and counties all over this country to open up shelters for illegal non-citizen migrants. FEMA also didn't do a very good job of helping people during Hurricane Katrina. Kind of a disgraceful disaster. And 2, a developer paying 150% of cost to complete improvements on their own subdivision property is ridiculous. I learned from a council meeting that to build a single-family home, there are fees of $30,000. Compare that to those ugly 80s and stack-it packs popping up like weeds everywhere that either have all fees waived or a fraction of the fees to build them. Wonder how that housing crisis was created. Anyways, a 2-year extension is to complete 70 single-family homes is too bad, because those are real homes that would also cost the builder over $2.1 million in fees at least. Maybe they'll only be affordable people rent, like Monica's okay with, rather than owning homes, since the county refuses to lower building and permit fees. Item 3, this item states, I quote, Private developers typically use bonds to finance the construction of new infrastructure and public facilities. Future property owners in the district repay the bonds issued over time and or continue to pay a special tax to fund ongoing infrastructure maintenance by the county, end quote. That is a good reason to vote no on every single bond debt on the ballot, especially Measure G. Also, this item says that developers find the county's assessment districts and community facility districts easier and faster than the state's process. That's embarrassing. Maintenance-only CFDs aren't bad, but sound like a Band-Aid for an issue that should probably be prioritized for fixing. Thank you.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next caller.
Consuelo, I'm rereading what Paul said. As representatives of the county, you should have drafted this ordinance to apply to the entire county, not just the unincorporated part. There are flood zones all over. For home builders, this doesn't mandate flood prevention as a guarantee perforated houses. The storm water may be running through your house, or maybe you'll have to build a house on piers. Great for letting in the rats, snakes, etc. And apparently, the board wants to exempt developers from these requirements. This goes against health and safety by potentially allowing vermin easier access and allowing the buildup of storm water, which might eventually present a health or mosquito hazard. But apparently the designers of this ordinance would rather not look at the big picture, as usual. The one good thing is that the homeowners get 20% discount on flood insurance. Other than that, you should reject this poorly planned proposal. 3, maintenance on community financing district seem at first glance like a good idea, but it would take away funding for new houses and provide it to developers for rehabbing old units, sort of like support for slumlords. I also noticed that Mello-Roos tax is based on an estimate. Given government's abysmal skills at math and pie-in-the-sky accounting and estimating, it sounds to me, to Pablo, it sounds to me like the CFD may simply give a high estimate on slummy housing and jack up our taxes, as well as sticking us with shoddy housing. Amen, Paul. And the county is giving permission to raise these taxes by 6% yearly.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Wouldn't it be great if some kind of ordinance would prevent flood damage, but it won't because you guys are incapable of even doing your job, so you want to put it down on others. But it's interesting to see how much involvement FEMA has in this. And, you know, you're wanting to follow FEMA's regulations, which we shouldn't be doing because FEMA has failed to do their job, which is to mitigate damage due to disasters. And instead, what they're doing is they fund another disaster, a disaster to our nation, by aiding and abetting and giving, you know, migrants anything and everything that they need while the communities are suffering. While FEMA says we don't have any more money if you've been in a storm. So why on earth would we even follow any regulations that they have or even work with FEMA when they aren't doing their part? They've distributed their money out to go to migrants as opposed to coming to where it needs to, where there's been disasters, continual disasters. They're making people pay back the money that they are being given to supposedly help. Here's $750. We're going to need that back from you. And you know what? You're not eligible for that. We're just going to say, screw you. So why on earth would we ever follow anything that FEMA does unless we want more destruction, unless we want more people pretty potentially just losing their home, right? It's a great way to do land grabs. But it's like we want to sit here and play the game with FEMA. We shouldn't be until they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, not going, okay, well, we'll abide by your regulations, all while you screw people over. And I don't know why you think that their inclusion of amenities is going to, you know, is more important than actually providing housing. You know, we think of all these things, we need to add this, we need to add that to this project. But in reality, it keeps you from even bringing any project forward. People don't even have any homes to move into. And if they do, they're way too expensive. And you guys know it. But you do all this busy work to act like you do something.
Thank you. Your time is up. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on the items on the consent calendar.
All right, with that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Okay, thank you. The next item for discussion is item number 4, Traffic Advisory Committee and related CEQA exception. I'm going to turn it over to public comment.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We have 7 total requests to speak. Again, all coming via phone. Also like to note for the record, we did receive 1 e-comment on this item, which was neutral. So for the individuals that have requested to speak on this item by phone, if you could please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you, and we will go ahead and give you a moment to do so. Again, we're taking public comment for phone callers on item 4. All right, seeing the first caller call through now, we will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, I'd like to remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. And we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
It's truth, there's nothing that makes me want to throw up a stop sign more than Traffic Advisory Committee. Maybe Sandak and MTS, but TAC is right there on a smaller scale, because much like Sandak, it'd be great if TAC suggestions really did reduce congestion, but they tend to do the opposite. 90% of everything they suggest involves lower speed limits, which can cause congestion. Today's another example. For almost $18,000, they're suggesting the county reduce speed limits by 5 miles per hour on Barnett Road in Ramona, 11th Street in Ramona, and El Camino Real in Rancho Santa Fe. This is a game the county plays with speed limits to reduce driving.
The aim of the game is to let go and see how low you can go. Go low, baby, go low. I go low, baby, go low. It's my way to show our love and
Okay, unlike what this item suggests, lower speed limits have never been proven to increase safety for anyone. Responsible driving is what increases safety, and in order to achieve that, the state needs to stop handing out crackerjack licenses. A corporate reality is that those driving licenses, along with registration, smogging, etc., are money makers. The same can be said for speed enforcement. It ensures those ticket quotas that officers like to deny rake in some more money for government. I also think this line, quote, "The transportation system must be safe for all road users, for all modes of transportation in all communities, and for people of all incomes, races, ethnicities, ages, and abilities," end quote. I think that line should be removed from the county's equity statement because it's out of the county's jurisdiction. You can't possibly ensure safe transportation for public transit users, which includes low-income residents, those with disabilities, and the elderly, if you don't oversee MTS and NCTD. And if for some reason, Jim and mostly Monica, you guys did have the capability of changing that reality, then why haven't you guys done it yet? I actually do believe in that type of statement, and if the county's not going to pursue that goal, then remove it. No to tax.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go ahead and go to our next speaker.
You guys need to be consistent with your agendas, because this was on one of them for today on consent, and then it's not. And yesterday, you didn't even have your meeting agenda out for 72 hours. It was showing the Wednesday one, but the fact that this is on a discussion item when you guys usually put it on consent, other ones could be on consent. It's just pretty ridiculous to see how you guys work things, but this is funny because this is a moneymaker. This is something where, you know, with the enforcement, money comes in. But reducing speeds, all it does is de-incentivize driving, but that's exactly your plan. And I'm wondering why it would cost almost $18,000 which per change would be about $2,562.29 each. Where's that money going? And, you know, when you're sitting here and you're removing lanes, lowering speeds, doing all these things, you're having people be on the road longer. So wouldn't that defeat the purpose of, like, you know, trying to save your GHGs and different things like that? I mean, again, you guys always get in your own way of, you know, even just doing whatever you claim that you're pretending to do. But this is a de-incentivizing of driving. We want people to be out of their cars because we can't be having people going anywhere because we need them to be a slave. And it's weird because you talk about slavery and you don't want that to happen, but you don't mind doing it to people. Interesting, the double speak that goes on. But again, you know, none of this is actually going to promote safety, reduce greenhouse gases, do anything that you want except for put people in a 15-minute city where they can just walk and bike and take public transit everywhere, take their genocide shots and just shut up, right? And then if they don't, then you'll just medicate them with the other medications that you guys have for mental and behavioral health, which is all the things that you guys actually should be taking for doing the things that you're doing to the people under the guise of something good. Just like Satan masquerades as the angel of light, you guys are good at doing what you do to pretend like whatever it is, actually.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Consuelo, let's see, Traffic Advisory Committee recommendations. You know, I think all I have to say on this item is, gosh, if you have close relationships with people who serve on boards, you can get things like stop signs installed on your street. You know, the wealthy people, they get favors when they have close relationships with people. Yeah. Wish I was one of them people. Actually, no, I don't. Disgusting. Anyways, yep, that's all I got to say about this item.
All right.
Ciao.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Supervisor Desmond?
Move to approve the item.
All right, is there a second? Okay. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present voting aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 5, opportunities for streamlining affordable and attainable housing and notice of exception. I'm going to hand it over to Davia so she can turn it over to the team.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Yes, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the Planning and Development Services and Council team.
Good morning, Chairwoman Vargas and Supervisors. Today, staff will be presenting a package of voluntary programs to streamline affordable and attainable housing aimed at reducing regulatory barriers and incentivizing housing production accessible to all. Staff requests the Board of Supervisors receive this presentation and provide direction to further develop the programs for future board consideration. During today's presentation, staff will give an introduction and provide an overview of each program. Then staff will review the recommendations. The board can choose to direct staff to develop all of these programs, which are streamlining in nature and do not add additional costs to development. For reference throughout this presentation, the bottom of each slide will show the topic being presented. Let's begin with our introduction. During the housing element adoption hearing in the summer of 2021, the board directed staff to evaluate the feasibility of developing 3 programs aimed at increasing housing production and providing incentives for certain types of housing. These programs include a small lot subdivision program that would help create single-family homes at more attainable prices, a senior housing and assisted living facilities program that would incentivize housing for older adults, and an expanded buy right program for streamlining affordable housing development. Also, in March of this year, the board directed staff to evaluate the feasibility of allowing the separate sale of accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. In developing these programs, we built upon existing state laws that provide streamlining and incentives, while also proposing additional measures that go beyond the state requirements. These enhancements are intended to further solidify the board's commitment to creating a pro-housing jurisdiction. Staff also focus on consolidating other housing efforts and resources when developing the programs. This includes the previously directed efforts to streamline development within the development feasibility analysis areas and VMT efficient and infill areas. This approach also maximizes the use of existing environmental analysis that have been already funded and directed. Several of the programs focus on offering additional streamlining and incentives within the VMT efficient and infill areas. While the board has the option to extend these programs beyond the VMT efficient and infill areas, doing so would require additional resources and time for further analysis and environmental review to evaluate any new potential impacts. The recommendations are also in alignment with other broader efforts, including the Housing Blueprint and its guiding principle of producing housing for all. Additionally, the small lot, senior, and buy right programs are part of the county's sixth cycle housing element implementation plan. These programs will be integrated with other housing element programs to ensure efficient implementation timelines, resource allocation, and funding. The county is required to implement all housing element programs to maintain its housing element certification. There is no fiscal impact associated with today's recommendations. If directed, staff will combine these efforts with existing projects already underway and utilize available resources. In terms of timing, the necessary environmental reviews for these programs will be incorporated into the scope of the upcoming Development Feasibility Analysis, PEIR, or other appropriate environmental analysis, which is expected to take 18 months. Additional time would be needed if the geography and the scope of the projects were to expand. Other items requiring zoning ordinance updates would be completed by fiscal year 26-27. To evaluate the feasibility of these programs, staff conducted best practice research, which included reviewing existing state law, meeting with industry professionals and other experts, and researching similar programs that have been successful in other cities and counties. Staff prioritized community outreach and hosted or attended a total of 33 meetings with community planning and sponsor groups, developers, affordable housing advocates, equity groups, labor unions, and environmental groups. The recommendations presented today were shaped by the stakeholder and public input received, responding to requests for additional incentives for housing development and removal of barriers.
We will start with the small lot subdivision program. Small lot subdivision programs facilitate the development of smaller lot homes, which can be sold at more attainable prices. These programs promote development of small lots, expand homeownership opportunities, and promote different building types, including duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes. The recently adopted Starter Home Revitalization Act allows multifamily parcels to be subdivided to develop smaller homes. The county zoning ordinance has been updated to align with this state law. To be eligible, sites must be within an urban area, under 5 acres, and be a multifamily designated property of less than 30 dwelling units per acre. Eligible projects are still required to undertake environmental reviews. A total of 5,358 acres within the unincorporated area are eligible for this legislation. Staff is proposing to go beyond existing state law to support small lot development with the following 2 recommendations. To further promote home ownership opportunities, the board can establish a local program to expand beyond state law for small lot developments within VMT efficient and infill areas. A local program would remove the density and size limitations imposed by state law, allowing for sites larger than 5 acres and sites with densities of 30 units per acre. This expansion would increase eligibility by an additional 570 acres, making a total of 5,928 acres eligible for a small lot subdivision program. Additionally, to streamline the development of small lot projects, staff recommends completing an environmental review for small lot development. This would allow projects consistent with the environmental document to move forward with fewer additional analyses, saving applicants time and reducing costs. During public outreach, staff received comments in favor of small lot developments, including comments highlighting that the county should create new opportunities for middle-income housing and homeownership at more attainable prices compared to homes on larger single-family lots. Expanding small lot opportunities beyond state law requirements and streamlining the environmental review would further support middle-income housing. Projects would still be required to meet local regulations, such as building height and setbacks, and comply with any local design standards. Housing developers noted that small lot developments are easier to finance than condos or apartments. A local program would expand opportunities for developing small lot projects without hindering the development of condos or apartments. This program would facilitate new building types and provide additional flexibility for developers. Additionally, there were requests to expand the program to additional areas to further reduce regulatory barriers, such as through the environmental review process. If directed by the board, the county would expand program eligibility beyond state law to additional parcels within VMT efficient and infill areas and streamline the environmental review for these projects. Next is the Senior Housing and Assisted Living Facilities Program. Senior housing is designed for older adults who live independently or with others. Assisted living facilities provide housing where older adults can get help with daily tasks. Staff has developed recommendations aimed at removing barriers and providing additional incentives to encourage the development of these housing types, as well as homes that support aging in place. Staff has developed the following recommendations for promoting senior housing and assisted living facilities. The first recommendation is to establish an overlay zone, which would serve as a regulatory layer on top of existing zoning, providing specific standards and additional incentives tailored for senior housing and assisted living facilities that serve seniors. The overlay zone would streamline the process for developing these housing types, making it faster, more affordable, and predictable for developers. Housing for seniors can be further incentivized through density bonuses that expand beyond what is currently being offered under state law. Staff is proposing an additional 20% bonus beyond existing state law for senior housing projects. In addition, staff is proposing a 10% bonus if 20% of a project's units are universally designed housing. These homes would be designed to be fully functional for all individuals in all stages of life, regardless of ability or mobility. Universal design standards are important to allow people to age in place comfortably. Staff is also proposing a 10% bonus if 30% of a project's units meet visitability standards. These standards include features such as step-free entrances, 32-inch wide doors, and one wheelchair-accessible bathroom, ensuring more inclusive communities. Finally, the last recommendation would be streamlining the process of making county land available for affordable housing development by directing county departments to annually identify underutilized properties and submit this information to the Department of General Services, or DGS. Since approximately 50% of the county's affordable housing developments built through this process provide low-income housing for older adults, this initiative would help ensure that suitable properties are made available for such developments on a regular basis. Through outreach meetings, staff heard that senior housing should be in areas with access to transportation services and amenities. These factors could be included as criteria for an overlay zone. Allowing additional density and providing incentives could help senior housing units be built more quickly and at lower costs. This could be achieved through expanding beyond bonuses and incentives provided under state law. Staff heard that retrofitting homes with accessible improvements is expensive, especially for many older adults on fixed incomes. If the features are built into the original construction, the costs would be lower. Density bonuses would address this by incentivizing universal design and visitability standards, allowing people to age in place comfortably and safely. Finally, the high cost of land is a major barrier to affordable senior and assisted living housing. Enhancing the county's surplus land process could help increase the availability of land for affordable housing development, which would be particularly beneficial for senior affordable housing projects.
Next is the expanded by right program. An expanded by right program would streamline the development of projects that include deed-restricted affordable housing units. This would apply to both mixed income projects with a market rate and affordable housing units, as well as 100% affordable developments. By reducing time and costs to process a project, this program would support the creation of more affordable housing units. Under a by right process, a building permit can be issued if the project meets all objective zoning and design standards, resulting in faster approvals and lower barriers to development. Recently adopted state law requires by right process for projects that provide at least 20% of the units as affordable to lower income households on RENA sites that have been relisted from a previous housing element site inventory. The county's current housing element identified a total of 236 RENA sites, 44 of which are relisted sites and eligible for the by right process under state law. Staff is proposing to go beyond existing state law with the following two recommendations to expand by right development. Staff recommends that the board expand the county's by right program to include all VMT efficient and infill RENA sites if the project provides at least 20% of their units to lower income households. This expansion would extend the by right process to an additional 100 RENA sites. Additionally, staff recommends extending the by right program to projects consisting of 100% affordable housing units located in VMT efficient and infill areas. During outreach, staff received feedback expressing support for expanding the by right program. Some of the comments pointed out that an expanded by right program should encourage housing opportunities for all regardless of income. Directing staff to move forward with both recommendations would support this by incentivizing the inclusion of affordable housing units in mixed income projects. Allowing housing projects to be processed by right and streamlining the environmental review are valuable incentives that can help reduce project cost and expedite the production of new units. Both recommendations would provide streamlining for projects on RENA sites and for 100% affordable housing projects. Finally, it is important to ensure that the by right process follows local standards, including design standards. By right projects created under both recommendations would be required to follow all local regulations, including objective design standards applicable to the community. Up next is the Accessory Dwelling Unit, or ADU, Ownership Opportunities Program. An ADU ownership opportunity program would amend the county's codes to allow ADUs to be sold separately from primary residences. The separate sale of ADUs would provide attainable homeownership opportunity options by being more affordable than traditional single-family homes, while also increasing the supply of for-sale housing. Recently adopted state law allows ADUs to be sold separately from primary residences without requiring a lot split. This is an optional legislation, meaning the county has the authority to adopt it locally, but is not required to do so. The law allows both the ADU and primary home to be sold as condominiums. Like other condominiums, each unit will have separate property taxes, and homeowners associations, or HOAs, must be formed to cover the cost of caring for shared spaces. Additionally, property owners must obtain approval from their lien holder, any existing HOA, and notify utility providers of the condominium conversion. By developing and adopting a local program, the county would remove the regulatory barrier to selling ADUs separately from primary residences. To expand homeownership opportunities and address the historical lack of housing inventory, staff recommends implementing the requirements outlined in Assembly Bill 1033 by developing a local ordinance that allows for the separate sale of ADUs. This local ordinance would codify the criteria under state law and incorporate additional county-specific criteria identified during outreach, such as a right of first offer to owner occupants to further promote home ownership. During public outreach, staff received comments regarding ADU ownership, including concerns about the creation of two-party HOAs and potential disputes. A local ordinance would satisfy requirements under state law and include provisions for dispute resolution within the HOA. Requests were made to prioritize owner occupants by allowing them a period to purchase either unit when it becomes available. This requirement can also be incorporated into a local program, giving owner occupants the first right to purchase. Some communities expressed opposition to the separate sale of ADUs, fearing it could reduce affordable rental housing, and expressed concerns that this would encourage more ADUs to be built in rural areas, increasing traffic, parking issues, and stress on infrastructure. If the board directs staff to develop a local ordinance, additional community outreach will help establish criteria for a local program. It is important to note that the construction and development of ADUs is already permitted under state law. Lastly, some residents highlighted the potential benefit of reducing displacement by allowing homeowners to create housing for family members, such as young adults or older relatives. The creation of a local ordinance would support these and other stakeholder priorities. Last is staff recommendations. In summary, the board may direct staff to proceed with all staff recommendations. If directed, staff will combine these efforts with existing projects already underway, utilizing available resources. Staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors find that today's actions are exempt from CEQA and direct staff to further pursue the recommendations proposed. This concludes our presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'm going to
14 total requests requesting to speak. Received 2 e-comments. For any individual, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. We'll go ahead and begin with the in-person speakers. As your name is called, if you could please come forward and stand on the arrows until it is your turn to speak at the podium. I'd like Sarah Buchanan. I believe it's Rao Askalan and Sean Kilkenny. Pursuant to the board rules, since we have, please begin by stating your name for the audio record.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, and I'm the Executive Vice President for San Diego Housing Federation. Actions are important steps towards easing the housing crisis in our region. Supports incentives for senior housing and assisted living, as well as creating opportunities for ADU ownership and making efforts to ensure speculators, are living in these homes. We also support staff recommendations proposed by staff to further promote the development of small lot development and square feet, which would support row homes in village areas. It's to simplify the subdivision map act.
Board members, I'm Dr. Ronald Asklin, Conservation Chair of the San for their diligent work on opportunities to increase housing and Club supports infill housing projects in fire-safe and low VMP areas. Recommendations for streamlining housing opportunities. We're in favor of the small lot living facility program and the expanded by right program. Opportunities program. We encourage the board to incorporate feedback from the 8 community programs and locations with essential resources and community amenities, avoiding regions lacking sufficient infrastructure, and taking into account the concerns about pursue must align with the newly adopted fire-safe and VMP-efficient smart growth alternative.
Chairwoman Vargas and Supervisors, my name is Sean Kilkenny. I'm in North County. I want to thank staff for their work on these programs. Apologies for speaking. We don't believe any additional environmental analysis is required for the same reason why direction by County Council that because the general plan is approved, general plan compliant projects consistent with the density and intensity of development of the general plan. Nothing in the is already allowed in your existing general plan and zoning ordinance. So no additional. Please direct staff to prepare these programs and have them ready to come back to be acted on and adopted so that we can start building more housing in San Diego. Office to lobby local state lawmakers to allow the same by right provisions for forced sale. Provisions are not ministerial, they're discretionary and require CEQA. Thank you.
Thank you. Rafael Perez. going to start your time.
Sir, your time has already started.
My body language started, ma'am. What I know of SICA is all about decent home, safe, suitable environment for humans and the thing. I haven't heard from honest and wise people like you to talk about emergency, now sheltering. Why? Can we not build tent right away and occupy the parks and open spaces? Why do we have to wait for an exemption? There is no exemption because SICA is all about survival. Please, that's my body language, pardon me, but an example is our community.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll hear from our next speaker.
And I'm just going to remind speakers to please direct your comments to the supervisors, and as we are the ones making the decisions. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rafael Perez. I'm the board chair of the Casita Coalition. We co-sponsored Assembly Bill 1033, which I was personally a champion for. ADUs are not creating more equitable homeownership opportunities in the way that many had hoped for. Assembly Bill 1033, or the adoption of ADU condos, was designed to create better and more access to homeownership, modeled after what's working in other states, Washington, Texas, Oregon, New Jersey, Hawaii. This is a simple solution by just allowing a change in whether these units can be rented or owned, and I applaud the staff suggestions. And the one thing I want to emphasize is to address the concern of ensuring that the implementation benefits those that it is intended to benefit. I'm strongly suggesting that any resulting unit of filing a condo map on an ADU be required to be offered exclusively to owner occupants for the first 45 to 60 days listed for sale. As a realtor, I see firsthand how first-time homebuyers often lose out to these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. And last call for Pat Lawrence. Not seeing any movement in the chamber. We will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. When it is your turn to speak, you'll be unmuted. You will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'd like to again remind the callers they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Lofbaum, and I'm here today to urge you to support these critical ordinances that deal with buy right, senior housing, and small lot development initiatives. This is more than just policy. It's a chance to give people like me, teachers, hardworking residents, a real path forward to home ownership. Today, so many are trapped in a cycle of high rents, unable to break free because of regulations that make it nearly impossible for us to build. If people are able to afford high monthly rents, they should be able to put those funds towards a mortgage, one that invests in their future and builds real stability. Tiny homes on wheels, which I did not hear mentioned today, offer affordable hope, but without land ownership, it's just a stepping stone. I know the difference it makes because I've lived it. Owning both a home and land gave me a foundation and a future. Now, despite owning land in Fallbrook, I'm being kept off it by county restrictions and overwhelming fees. While user-initiated fees might make sense for developers, the process for landowners like myself should be covered by property tax. It's unfair to ask individuals to shoulder costs for basic compliance checks when these cases are already...
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Paul Bold, 4 options, 3 are anti-people, small lot subdivision. This type of crowding has been shown to cause huge societal problems. Senior housing, this one sounds excellent. I hope the incentives aren't used as political favors. Buy right program, setting architectural criteria has to cover individual circumstances with unique criteria. This doesn't. Many houses in the state are built on stilts or steep slopes in floodplains or in environmentally sensitive areas needing special criteria. It will limit the housing and not stimulate it. separate sale of ADUs. The homeowner usually wants to vet his or her own tenants personally. A separate sale would also greatly diminish property rights to reduce.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Okay, Consuelo. Yeah, correct, Nora. You are the corrupt ones making the decisions on behalf of the hardworking people, honest people that want the better for everybody, not just one wealthy person trying to come up on the system. Anyways, with that being said, yeah, just more government, more bully government in our private business. It's pretty disgusting. It's infuriating to hear some of these. And it's funny, too, that we have, you guys mentioned, or the woman mentioned, how it's age in place comfortably. Well, there's nothing, if that's not an oxymoron, there's nothing about aging comfortably, and especially if they're partaking and victims of our dirty healthcare system, which the majority are. Yeah, aging comfortably. Anyway, you got to pitch.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
You're always making it more complicated than it needs to be, which then gets in the way of you being able to provide the housing. And so you sit here and you create these projects acting like it's going to produce the homes that need to be produced and that it's going to make it easier, when in reality it just makes it harder. There's more rules, regulations, and policies that people need to follow in order to provide the housing. And anything that you're doing with VMT, vehicle miles traveled, and your efficiency and whatever is all based off of BS, because there is no data to show that whatever you're doing to even mitigate VMTs or anything of the like is not documented. So there is no proof that that is actually happening. And to even want to put 30 units per acre is insane. You guys, again, do all this busy work. So on the surface, it seems good. It seems like what you're doing is actually going to move the needle forward. But as we always see, the proof is in the pudding, and everything that you guys do causes more problems and more time to be taken in order to provide.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
It's true, the county is not a pro-housing jurisdiction when it's chosen VMT over reality. Working with political unions that funded Monica and Tara's campaigns will never result in affordable housing. Everything the state and county has done has resulted in people not being able to afford to buy homes, to the point that people are fleeing the county and the state. In anti-people corporate language that you guys speak, that means lost tax revenue. Stay on this path and no projects will be able to be funded soon. Subdividing lots for smaller single-family homes will not result in an affordable home. Smaller doesn't mean cheaper. Ask New York City or San Francisco. That idea sounds like a scam to benefit big corporate developers. Programs to allow for the sales of ADUs separate from the single-family home are both nothing but state dictates, not county ideas. And their only purpose is to take away land from single-family homes and benefit big corporate developers like Blackstone and BlackRock that Tara once pretended to protest about. Maybe if senior living facilities are mixed use too, there'd be money in them. Developers love that, just like they love this item. More money for them and whose campaigns they donated to. Thanks.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you. I want to thank the team for the thoughtful report that they provided and for answering all the questions that we had during the during the briefing. But I think it's really important as we are moving to achieve our goals for increasing affordable housing opportunities for our communities that we head in this direction. As we consider implementation of these proposals going forward in our unincorporated areas, I want to ensure that the rollout of these programs keeps equity at the top of mind and that they truly benefit the communities that they're designed to serve and are not co-opted by outside real estate investment companies to detriment our communities. I'd like us to, I think I mentioned this before during our briefing, but I want to make sure that I ask this, that we also consider exploring innovative financing options, protection of owner-occupied properties and supporting long-term rental options and preventing a surplus of short-term rentals. I want to share that in the proposal that we do require the offering of the first-time home buyers, and I think it's 45 to 65 days, is that correct? Yeah. And so the package of voluntary programs that we've been presented today reflect our commitment to really promoting equitable access to housing, removing regulatory barriers, and incentivizing the production of housing for all income levels, especially low-income families, older adults, and first-time home buyers. By developing these programs, we will expand beyond state law, ensuring that our county remains at the forefront of housing solutions. The other part of it is that the program development staff should continue community outreach efforts, right? I would like to ask you to continue to do that, to refine these programs and then ensure that they're thoughtfully implemented with community input as we're moving forward. And I know it's only in unincorporated areas, but maybe other communities will lead. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to proceed with the recommendations and the opportunities for streamlining affordable and attainable housing package, including the small lot subdivision program, the senior and assisted living housing program, the expanded by right program, and development of a local ADU ownership program. Also, I'd like to ask staff to report back on housing element implementation and other housing activities progress as part of the annual general plan annual progress report in the spring. That's my motion. Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So your motion is to accept all of the recommendations?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, which I'll second the motion, but I got a question for staff, because one of the things that's in here via the my understanding via the VMT guidelines, I've got a couple of communities in my district that have zero VMT in their downtown areas. So I want to also make sure that we're able to build housing in the village centers. So does the current general plan allow us to build in the villages themselves, or are we negated from doing that because of VMT? We're only going to be going in VMT efficient areas.
Supervisor Desmond, through the chair, yes, the general plan allows for development in these villages. They would have to comply with all the applicable requirements to move forward. They will have to do an analysis, an initial study for environmental impacts that would include an assessment of VMT or the application of CEQA exemption.
So they're going to have to go, even though the general plan allows them currently to build in villages, they still have to do an environmental analysis? I thought the current general plan negated that.
They would have to do what's called a cursory overview or an initial assessment. From that, the outcome could be no CEQA review or further CEQA review. But they do have to take several steps to look at their project and see if there are any associated environmental concerns.
Well, just one of the things is, I don't know, I'm still not clear on that answer. Yeah, okay.
Supervisor Desmond, through the chairwoman, if I could add to Rami's comments. To Mr. Kilkenny's comment, we use, and developers can use, this 15183 process where you rely on the environmental work done for the general plan on everything you possibly can. Rami's talking about some of the additional just double checks that you have to do to make sure you're not going above and beyond those previously analyzed issues. So the bottom line here is, if a project is consistent with the general plan, it does not have any unique particular issues on that site, which will be the majority of sites, they will be able to use the streamlining, and we always utilize that where possible. Inga, if there's anything you'd like to add, I'll defer to you.
Nothing to add. That's an accurate description.
Okay, so I just want to be clear that the VMT guidelines, the mitigation program, the development feasibility analysis, the sustainable land use framework, the housing blueprint, the removal and removing barriers to housing, all the things that we had you look at that really kind of drew this out for a couple of years. None of those preclude our villages from being built, but in our climate action plan, it was voted on that we only build in, I guess, not in high fire or non-VMT efficient. So I'm a bit confused where that comes into play.
Supervisor, through the chairwoman, the current land use plan in place today is our general plan, including those villages, and developers can build out to the village level today. My understanding of the direction from the board related to the climate action plan was to explore possible land use changes tied to the VMT efficient infill areas and the lower fire severity zones as part of the sustainable land use framework. So the board would have to collectively act to direct us to make such changes.
Okay, so that's not in place yet. Because I was going to ask for a friendly amendment to include the villages, but it doesn't sound like I have to do that, because the villages can be built on right now, even though they're not in may or may not be in VMT efficient areas. They still have that opportunity as long as it complies with the general plan, and they have to check a couple of other boxes. Because one of the things that really kind of scared me about the VMT is that, if we have these, I mean, it's, Ramona, Julian, Alpine, Valley Center, Fallbrook, if they can't build in their downtown villages, that's where the services are going to be provided, and potentially grocery stores and things like that. So people don't have to drive to El Cajon, or they don't have to drive to Escondido to try to get groceries and those types of things. So if we can do housing in the villages, I'm happy to support. I just wanted to make sure that that was still an option that's on the table for developers at this point in time. Thank you. So I second the motion.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Lawson-Weimer.
Okay. So just thank you so much to the team. I think this was great work. Very excited about a lot of these measures. I had just some questions. So I think the small lot subdivision piece seemed like analytically clear and had a lot of stakeholder support. Same for the senior housing and assisted living, and same for the expanded buy right program. So my question's really only focused on the analysis regarding ADU ownership opportunities. I'm mostly kind of interested. There were some questions by stakeholders wondering whether allowing sales of the ADUs might unintentionally end up reducing rental housing stock that is available, because that could be turned into condos. So that was sort of one concern that was raised, that there might be a inadvertent decrease in rental housing units. And the second concern I heard raised by stakeholders was that allowing the bifurcated sale of ADUs could also end up inadvertently increasing property values of the land, because then you're able to turn essentially one unit into 2 units for profit for sale. I don't know, right? I'm sort of interested. So that was questions raised by stakeholders. I'm wondering if we actually have done any economic projections or analysis at all about any modeling about that. And if not, that's okay. I don't think we directed you to do that. I was just curious if we did. And if we haven't, is that something we could look at? It wouldn't change my vote today. I'll still be happy to support this motion from the chair, but I think it would be useful to understand sort of unintended consequences moving forward.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer, through the chairwoman. No, we have not done an economic analysis at this point. If directed to pursue this program further, we could incorporate that into our effort and come back and report back on what those land values would be if a ADU is sold off separately. With regard
and the rental issue.
And the rental issue as well. We are recommending to incorporate the first right of refusal to existing renters and users within the ADU or in the main structure if that's sold off separately. That was at the recommendation of some of the advocates for this program. So we're including that.
But I mean, that's great, and I think it's wonderful, but you might end up in a situation where someone doesn't have a down payment, right? They can maybe afford the monthly, but even a right of first refusal won't help them if they're not able to put together a down payment. So again, happy to support this today, but I think that if we're kind of looking at this direction more broadly, I think it would be good to better understand these dynamics, the sort of dynamics of unintended consequences on both that were raised by stakeholders, both on availability of rentals as well as to what extent, if at all, does the potential for ADU development and sale change or impact the underlying property value of the property. Because that would obviously have impacts on, whether someone could afford to buy it in the first place. Those would be my. You look puzzled, sir. Yeah, well, I don't want to. I think it could be complex. That's probably true. That seems most likely, but I acknowledge that there might be variables we don't look at, right? You might have, it could go up, but you might have additional supply side impacts. So there's sort of market supply and demand intersecting curves that might have variables.
Okay, Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
I'm sorry, we were.
No worries.
He said he's not confused, and I said just disagreeable. That's all. Anyway, thank you so much for the report and all of the continual work that is going into kind of taking what the community says, what we say, and packaging it together with state mandates and our goal to produce as much housing as possible. I really like, especially when we're talking about the senior living and senior assisted living. It's done kind of in the spirit of the Blue Zones concept, where seniors have access to all the different amenities, kind of building out intergenerational neighborhoods. I'm really a big fan of that, so I like to see that within this report. I am also a proponent, given, we're certainly going to do more studies and maybe look at some of the other states that have put in place ordinances that increase the production of ADUs that would be for sale. I am a proponent of that, and I do believe that in the way that our system is structured now, we do have more incentives for affordable rental units and a lot less for sale. I think that is an opportunity for folks, and so I'm going to, of course, taking in the data, but also continue to be supportive of that. It is one of my priorities that as many people as possible have the opportunity to own a home. And so whether that looks like an ADU or not, I think adding that possibility as a tool in our toolbox is super important. So I am supportive of the motion today, but I do want to go back to some of the correspondence that I think we all received, the letter from Nolan Communities and some of the comments here made today. I want to, this is something that's important to me that I've mentioned on this dais before, is that, we make our decisions here, right? And then how is that interpreted, in the practical sense? So I see this as it can be sort of theoretical, right? And then there's the practice. And so I just want to ask for the public's knowledge, and certainly for my own, what is the progress around some of the initiatives, policy decisions that have been made on the dais? I think that there are a couple of references in the letter. I know about the low to moderate inclusionary ordinance that is coming back, but this checklist exemptions, expand eligibility of checklist exemptions. I don't think I know about that. What is that referencing, and is there progress on that front, or has the board decided to not do that?
Through the chair, Supervisor, as reference to some of the changes and innovations in the letter from Nolan Communities, we've been implementing a variety of innovations in recent years. Back in 2020, we began in changes for smaller projects, such as the ADU pre-approved plans, as well as self-certification for smaller projects as well at that time on the building permit phase that helps with mom and pop smaller applicants and projects. Last year in 2023, the board directed a variety of changes to removing barriers to housing, which improves guaranteed review times for housing projects. So for example, on 100% affordable housing projects, we're reviewing those plans within 5 business days for the building plans, and then we have guaranteed review times for VMT efficient and infill housing as well in both the discretionary and building permit phase. In addition to those innovations that we've had for those projects, there's the housing element implementation that's also been underway in recent years, and I'll let my colleague Rami Tali speak to that.
Since adoption of the housing element in 2021, we've been actively working on about 30 items. Some of those items require direction or approval from the board. Others are administrative that are implemented throughout our process. In addition to that, we've been working on some of the strategic items like the transformative housing solutions effort. We've been working also on the housing blueprint effort. I can call to more specific items that have been completed or nearing completion. Things like lot consolidation, where we are working with developers to provide a more streamlining tool to consolidate lots within the unincorporated area. Also objective design standards, and these are tools that piggyback off of a lot of the initiatives that the state's doing. So where the state is providing streamlining and by right approvals, we're working with the community to establish objective design standards so that those projects, as they come forward, are meeting a minimum level of quality set by the community and by the previous board direction. In addition, we've got continuous outreach with our partners in the development community and stakeholders. And then the work that has gone into a zoning code cleanup, where we incorporated several, in fact, over 20 state housing bills into the zoning ordinance. One of those is AB 803, which we presented on today, the small lot subdivision standards. So those are in place today. With this action, Supervisor, we'll be expanding beyond the state to leverage those efforts even further.
Okay. Going back to removing barriers, because I had a question about that. Removing barriers to housing, we talked about quite a bit during the budget cycle, right? Funded additional money for that. How is that going? What is our goal to, I guess none of this is ever a true completion because we're always taking what the state is mandating and integrating it into our system, right? But how are we measuring whether we're sort of done with or have the infrastructure at least to handle the changes that we will have to incorporate into the system? So for that program, is it going full steam ahead? Are there still elements of it that we know we have to incorporate? How is it going? What is the status?
Through the Chair, Supervisor, it is going well. It is on progress. So it was a 3-year project with removing barriers with items to be completed in year 1, year 2, and year 3. We just completed year 1 this past summer, and we completed the items that were forecasted when we presented to the board in 2023. The key items were the guaranteed review times for 100% affordable and then VMT efficient infill housing as well as workforce housing. We are achieving those timelines for the guarantees and are measuring that and tracking it with applicants. We are reaching out to applicants to make sure they're aware that we offer these guaranteed review times, to walk them through the process, and then have advanced communication with them prior to any submittal to help them through the process. Some of the other items were greater customer service for smaller applicants. We have dedicated permit liaisons in our permit center now stationed at the check-in counter. So as individuals come in, we're flagging their projects to look for who might need assistance on behind-the-scenes coordination and greater expertise and support as they go through the permit process. Then there are other items that were be completed in year 2, the current fiscal year that we're in, such as movable tiny homes that one of the callers spoke about. And we're drafting language this year that would be completing that project to offer movable tiny homes as another housing option as a tool in the toolbox for applicants. And on top of that, we have actions that are moving forward into year 3 that are also on track and underway, such as the development feasibility analysis and other ordinance options and updates that will be making it easier and streamlined for applicants to move forward. With all of this, we're looking at overall permit volume, homes being built as indicators of the progress that we're making.
Okay, thank you for that, and I'll just continue to ask, those types of questions as we move forward, and looking forward to workshopping all of this, and just kind of looking at where are we based on the decisions that have been made, and how does that result in the progress that we want to see. So thank you very much, fully supportive of the item, appreciate all of the work.
Supervisor. I had another question. Thank you very much. Just for staff, I see there on the timelines, I know we might not be able to make Mr. Kilkenny's timeline of February of next year, but it'd be very, very nice. For the small lot subdivisions, it's 18 to 36 months, depending on the board's action of the development feasibility analysis. and also streamline individual projects for environmental reviews. Again, that's dependent on the board's action for the development feasibility analysis, and also creating senior housing. What I'm concerned about is 18 to 36 months, if we can get that further. So when you come back with the design feasibility analysis and we start giving you more stuff to do, it's like, well, I want to know how much this is putting things back. Because we're in a housing crisis and we got to start getting housing built. And the reality is if it's not profitable for developers to build, we can have all the restrictions we want, but it's never going to happen. So we got to get moving one of these days to make it, and I know it's not all your fault, but there's a lot of pressures from different directions. But when we go through the feasibility analysis, I'd like to know, and whatever it is we add on or put in there, that is this going to make it even take longer or shorter? And that's at a later date, but I'm trying to get things moving as quickly as we can. Thanks. It was more of a statement than a question.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
And Chairwoman Vargas, that motion passes with Supervisor Anderson voting no, all other supervisors being present voting aye.
This concludes the business before the board today. We'll now resume with non-agenda public comment. So, Ryan.
Thank you, Chairwoman Vargas. We still have 19 total requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. Those are all coming via phone. We'll give the phone participants a moment to call in. All right, seeing the first phone caller calling in, we will now hear from those that have requested to speak by phone. Again, in accordance with the board's rules, when it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. Again, just like to remind the callers, they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking, and we'll go ahead and begin with our first caller.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Megan Stewart, and as someone who has worked with youth, I am happy as we recognize this week as Mental Illness Awareness Week, which is a time for us to shed light on a growing crisis, particularly among our youth and young adults. As many are aware, our community is seeing an alarming increase in mental health issues among young people, and research shows a direct correlation between this rise and increased drug and marijuana use. The statistics are undeniable. First-time marijuana use before the age of 18 is the single greatest predictor of future opioid use disorder, which, as we know, is also an increasing problem. Along with that, high-potency THC products, which are now very commonly available, increase the risk of psychosis by 3 times, while daily use shows an even shocking 5-fold increase. Another study has shown that adolescents aged 12 to 19 who reported using marijuana in the past year were up to 11 times more likely to develop a psychotic disorder. The impact on mental health extends beyond psychosis. Daily marijuana use before the age of 17 is associated with a 7 times greater risk for suicide attempts. And according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health Data, youth aged 12 to 17 who used marijuana in the past year or even the past month are at double the risk of major depression and nearly double the risk of suicidal ideation compared to non-users. As we observe this week of awareness, I urge you to recognize that our young people's mental health and mental illness is deeply intertwined with their access to and use of drugs, especially marijuana, which is only becoming more available and even marketed and pushed onto them. Our youth deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
All above, it looks like we may be doing what we thought we couldn't, solving the TJ pollution mess ourselves. ABC News on October 2nd reported that some residents in the South Bay said the smell is actually improving a bit. And Mexico is doing a great job. We need to praise them a bit more often. We do not need a Superfund site here. I have suggested at least 4 things. concrete lining to speed water flow and sewage out to sea, holding ponds or reservoirs like there once were, handheld air pollution monitors to zero in on the pollution source, and baking soda or lime to cut down on the harmful odors or maybe even eliminate them. You have forwarded several of these suggestions on, but I never heard a concrete yes or no on them. We should have a status report on all cleanup suggestions. We have enough evidence and resources, years and years of it, to do some or all of the cleanup work ourselves. Volunteers, interested parties, and let's have a we can do it attitude. And please, we need to sort of take care of animals as well as people. So I think Craig Netwig and Deborah Barkley really need to be investigated big time. And if they're threatening people, that's another reason to prosecute them. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to our next speaker.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Cortado. I'm calling regarding the horses and dogs on 2 properties owned by Deborah Barkley and Craig Netwig. They continue to be neglected and abused. Please ensure that all the animals are promptly removed from these properties because they are at risk of dying if they remain there. Los Angeles Alliance for Animals already has placement secured for these animals in loving homes. Deborah Barkley and Craig Netwig must also face maximum charges and mental evaluations and treatment and have their interactions with animals completely limited. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Ann Riddle here. Earlier today, I spoke in support of Prop 36, and I recognize it's a very complex issue, and I appreciated the Board of Supervisors' comments and your questions to staff and their responses. What occurred to me is that while I was listening, I was getting text from some parent colleagues who were sitting in a wonderful presentation, they said, by DA Summer Steffen, receiving information about the work here in the county regarding law enforcement and the protection of public safety. And they mentioned her support for Prop 36 and the reasons why. She was explaining it to her audience. It seems sad to me that while we got to hear your 5 opinions, that our own county DA didn't have the opportunity to speak to that issue this morning. I'm not sure why that is. Was that because she wasn't invited to do so? I hope that's not the case, because we in the public really need to have all the information regarding decisions that you make, particularly about propositions that are pending on our November ballot. In fact, although we've missed the opportunity today, I'd respectfully suggest that we invite DA Summer Steffen to come to Board of Supervisors and after the fact share with us her experiences. It's a huge office, the experiences of the people who work in her office, so that we can get a wider range of information than we received this morning. I think we would all be well served and in the public interest of making sure we have the facts. This would be an extraordinarily great place to begin. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
That was nice. Consuelo, let's see, what do I have? Yeah, we don't have a housing crisis. We have a greed and corruption crisis. And with that being said, any one sentient being that suffers on the planet, we all continue to feel the effects of that suffering. And the opposite goes for there being positive, enlightened actions and change. That good, too, has a ripple effect. A colossal shift will occur on our planet. Also wanted to say reminder to the people, if you reduce the dog's chain one link at a time every few days until his chain is so short he won't be able to move, he will never resist because he is conditioned to the loss of his freedom slowly. Over time, and that's what's happening to you. That's what's happening to you. The untold truth. The police is the mafia. Politics is theater. Lawyers are liars. Doctors are crooks. Cancer is a business. Presidents are puppets. Popes, priests are rapists. Education is indoctrination. Governments are corrupt. Freedom is an illusion. News is propaganda. Vaccines are poison. Science is fiction. Taxation is theft. And work is slavery. And guess what? We're all tax cattle slaves, voting to perpetuate the same system that freaking enslaves us. Wake up, humanity. Wake up. You're under a freaking spell. Wake up.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Madison Rapp. Today I want to address a critical public health issue that affects our community, vaping, particularly among our youth. This is something I see in my own family and have been aware of the harms that vaping causes. Recent medical research has raised serious alarms about the health risks associated with e-cigarettes. Vaping damages young people's lungs as severely as traditional smoking. In a recent study comparing vapers and smokers during a strenuous exercise test, both groups demonstrated significantly lower fitness levels and greater breathlessness than non-users. Marijuana concentrates are increasingly being used in vaping devices, often with extraordinarily high THC levels ranging from 40 to 80%, as opposed to the 20% THC found in high-grade marijuana. Many users prefer the vaping device because it is smokeless, sometimes odorless, and it is easy to hide or conceal. Vaping devices come in a variety of shapes and sizes, with some resembling USB flash drives, pens, or other everyday objects that are often difficult for parents and teachers to recognize. As a mother, this concerns me, but it should concern us all. Vapes are often marketed to young people through appealing flavors and low prices. This strategy is drawing more and more young individuals into a habit without them understanding the long-term health consequences. Doctors and policymakers need to be aware of the serious risks of vaping, and it is our responsibility to support our children in avoiding or quitting these harmful products. The government is already making strides through its tobacco and vape bill, aiming to curb the irresponsible marketing of these products to our youth. As we consider our planning initiatives, let's prioritize the health of our community by promoting educational programs and regulations that protect our young people from the dangers of vaping. Together, we can create an environment that safeguards their future. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to our next caller.
It's truth first. No one told me this joke. It's all mine. Tara, there's great news for you from Sandag. There's allegedly going to be increased bus frequencies in North County, so your chances of actually showing up to a meeting on time should go up soon. And so because of both Tara and Nora missing or being late to so many meetings, they either need to be removed from this board or have their pay deducted by $1,000 fines every time they miss a meeting. If they're late by more than 5 minutes, then it's a $100 fine. I also request that Monica bring herself back into reality with the rest of us regular people who go to stores like CVS and see empty shelves and young women employees' lives put at risk due to increased theft. The only way shelves are not empty is if everything's locked up rather than the criminals. Now, yesterday, why did Tara's 5-minute recess turn into a 30-minute Nora temper tantrum / Tara political huddle session? I'd like the county to institute a policy that any recess that goes beyond the stated length either must end immediately or that the clerk updates the public every 5 minutes until the reconvening. I'd also like to see the monitors in front of the supervisors be turned off while people are speaking at the podium to ensure engagement and electricity savings. And when were the county's rules on speaking time officially changed? That untransparent fraud means the county's going to get another lawsuit. Now I want to point out this May 22nd comment from Joel.
We need to make these communities whole because that's going to lower the VMT because they're not going to have to leave their community.
how horrible that you want to disconnect the county. It's shocking how many people don't know anything about the different communities within the county because they don't leave their 15-minute safe zones. People are missing out on Chaldean, Ethiopian, and Vietnamese cultures. I know some supervisors may have an issue with Asians, but as someone who grew up traveling, I enjoy real diversity of people, looks, cultures, foods, and thoughts, which help in understanding and perspective. Without it, it might make someone naive enough to vote for Joel Anderson. And Tara, quit posting on Instagram during these meetings while people are begging for help for the horses.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Laurie Palladino, horses on Artesian Road, non-agenda.
You can proceed with your comments. Thank you.
Good morning. The horses on Artesian Road are suffering and they need your help. We are very concerned the County Board of Supervisors are not acting appropriately, nor are they taking these concerns seriously. We are pleading again for relief and for real help for the horses on Artesian Road. Please do not ignore our requests. These poor horses need more than placating words. Please show some actual tangible results from action taken to help these suffering animals. Why is the county repeatedly returning to the network if everything is okay? Why are county taxpayer dollars wasted on repeat visits to check on the welfare of these animals if everything is okay? Interim Director Steve Lujan was advised of the depth of concern over the neglect and the abuse of the horses. We're told he responded, the statute of limitations was over. When asked what the statute of limitations were, his response was he did not know. Does Steve Lujan have any background or experience in animal welfare? Is he concerned for the well-being of animals who are in dire situations? We want to know why the law is not enforced. Colic is extremely painful for horses. How are horses allowed to suffer with no intervention for their care and their well-being? How are any animals allowed to languish and starve until they are finally given release from their suffering through death? There are disturbing allegations regarding the new director for County of Animal Services from a grand jury last year for returning $3.1 million when the shelter desperately needed more vets, while 592 animals were euthanized in only 1 year's time. Tara Lawson-Remer, we call on you and the others to end the...
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Wow, the lengths that you guys will go to silence the truth. I bet you are pretty stoked right now that Justin is sitting in a jail cell because of you guys and wanting to silence the truth that comes out of his mouth because it's so harmful to what you guys stand for. But you don't seem to care. You want to get people out of these jail cells and out of prisons, but you're so good at putting them in there just to protect your ass. You don't really care about the people. You just want to shut up the truth. And it is evident by arresting people just for speaking there, by silencing people's time, by bringing forward restraining orders on individuals who are exposing the lies, the corruption, the abuse of authority that has taken place in the county. And now he's sitting in a cell where all of you should be. And you shouldn't be punishing somebody for bringing forward truth. But you do, and you will continue to. And that's not something that should make people afraid, but it should make more and more people tell the truth and expose all of the atrocities that are going on in the county. Because he even asked if he was able to go to that meeting you were at, Nora, and he was told yes. And then yesterday, he's done his job by surrendering to your demands. And now he's going to be sitting there for who knows how long and what's going to come forward after this. But you should tread lightly because you should understand that your day for being in a prison cell is coming, and it will be valid, and it will be for doing all of the corrupt and nefarious things that you guys engage in, perpetrating as though you are angels of light when you're filled with darkness, especially when you're willing to take someone's life from them like this and put them in a cell because you're terrified of the truth. Maybe if you guys told, if you wouldn't be so terrified.
Thank you. Your time is up. We'll go to our next speaker.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a parent and a public health educator, and today I wanted to remind you about a recent UT article titled, UK Lawmakers Back Landmark Bill to Gradually Phase Out Smoking for Good. This article describes how important rules and policies are to improve public health. The British government plans to implement a smoking ban aimed at stopping young people from ever smoking. It would become illegal to sell tobacco products to anyone born after January 2009, creating the strongest smoking measures in the world in efforts of creating a smoke-free generation. The bill also includes measures to crack down on youth vaping by banning the sale of cheap, disposable vapes and restricting flavors specifically aimed at the targeting of children. I'm grateful that San Diego already recognizes the great harm these products pose to our young people by implementing a policy banning the sale of flavored vape products. This was a huge step in the right direction, setting rules in place that protect public health. I ask you to now consider revisiting the topic, looking for ways to further the goals and priorities set by this board with youth for the sale of tobacco products as well as flavored marijuana products. How can we create a smoke-free generation here in San Diego County to push back on a false narrative sent by the tobacco industry, creating improved health and well-being for our young people? Thank you.
Thank you. And Chairwoman Vargas, that concludes the request for non-agenda public communication this morning.
All right, with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. The next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, October 22nd at 9 a.m.